Hey there, quick note before we start today. I recorded this episode way back when, 2 months ago, nearly, so sort of end of October, beginning of November, maybe. And we talk about D&D, and we talk about D&D 5e, and our love for the system. Of course, we recorded this way before all of the stuff with the OGL happened. If you want to know my position on that, Wizards of the Coast are idiots. And that's all I have to say on that matter. So, enjoy this episode, which is very much a TTRPG kind of toolkit / talking about making a podcast and an actual play thingy. I hope you enjoy it. This should be a lot of fun. Now, a lot of our long-term listeners and my friends will know that I'm huge into D&D, but some new listeners to this podcast might not know what tabletop role-playing games are, what D&D is. So, in your own words, can you sort of tell us all about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I predominantly play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, which a lot of people do. And essentially, you take on a role and work and explore a world, whether it's been created by the person running the game, or you've gotten out of a book, like a module released by Wizards, in this case of Dungeons and Dragons, and you just explore and assume this role of an interesting character. You could be the typical hero, or perhaps an anti-villain or anti-hero, sorry. And yeah, just essentially, it's just storytelling is really what it boils down to.
Yeah, and it's sort of that collaborative storytelling, isn't it? It's the sort of working together with your friends, with the other players, to sort of tell the most epic story you can.
And I think that particular aspect is very often can be forgotten. I think there's a lot of there's a bit of a power dynamic when it comes to the game master versus the players.
Yeah,
that can very easily tip in the wrong and unfun direction at the table. So the collaborative part is really large part of what I really enjoy about playing these games.
Yeah. And how long have you been playing now?
Oh wow! I mean, I've been playing.
I realise I'm also going to age you at this point, so because I mentioned you start in mid-20s, early to mid-20s. So apologies if I make you sound like you're really old and like you give me a big number. So
well, it's definitely at least a decade, because really I only started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 4th edition, so that was, early to mid 2000s when that was, and it was fairly short lived as far as editions go, because it wasn't very popular at the time.
Yeah. I'm going to make you feel old. I started mid-20s, but that's only like 4 and a bit years ago.
I was going to say, I get up out of bed and I feel old.
If it's any consolation, I thought we were the exact same age. So there we go. So tell me all about the Incorrigible Party. I think first question, obviously this is your actual play podcast, but where did that name come from?
Well, okay, so that's a bit of a story. So like you and I met my co-host of the Incorrigible Party over the internet, and over Twitter specifically. There was a group of us in the board gaming community on Twitter that tweet at each other and interact with each other on a routine basis, and we kind of formed this Incorrigible club. We had a hashtag Incorrigible club, and essentially it was one person, a friend of mine, Christian Kang, he just had like this bot post every day. He said it was, "Today is the day I start working out." And every day I would respond, "Me too." And that went on for like an entire year of daily, the same post, the same. So then other people started posting the same thing. And we kind of had this shared camaraderie almost, and commiserating with this post and having to daily post it. And then kind of a few of us, we grew closer and created friendships off of this through other additional interactions. And one day I was like, hey, let's play Dungeons and Dragons and record it. So John and Emily, they're a couple. They live in Ohio, and they have decades of TTRPG experience. Bill and Elena, who also live in Canada, they had never played before we started the show, like never even touched a TTRPG. So the first kind of chapter of the show, we geared it towards like learning how to play. So it was very, if you were completely unfamiliar, I think we did a really good job of sticking to rules as written as much as possible and kind of explaining how things go. And honestly, listening back to that first chapter, I don't know how I had the patience that I did dealing with like brand new players. Not to say that they were, that's not a denigration of them or their skills at the table. That was just like, that's a me thing.
Yeah.
That's a me thing.
Yeah, I could sort of definitely relate to that sort of brand new players, because I think we like to think we're all going to be the best teacher we can when it comes to tabletop role-playing games. But like that is a whole skill in itself, which is almost separate to actually sort of playing the game. And I think it definitely takes sort of like the right person with the right amount of patience to actually effectively introduce someone into a new game, or even a sort of running game, and have the patience and the skill kind of required to give them the best experience.
No, I completely agree. There's a lot of moving pieces, right? And you really need to be forgiving, because even the person running the game cannot possibly remember every single little rule or interaction that comes up at the table. Just there's so much variation that can happen, and you have to be forgiving on both sides, I think.
All right, brilliant. So I'm kind of interested, because sort of actual play, sort of D&D, it sounds like a lot of fun. But I imagine the tech side, I imagine sort of the getting it to actually work is probably not as fun. So what have you learned from sort of running actual play D&D?
I have learned just how much of a friend the power of editing is.
Yes.
Because I know we like literally just talked about it before we started recording. It works. It makes you sound amazing.
Yeah.
Like we sound, not to pat my own back here, but I think our show sounds really great.
Yeah.
And honestly, when you're, especially in combat, right? I think it does a lot to speed up combat and make it so combat is not a slog to listen to. And also, obviously, that kind of comes into how you craft your combat encounters as well. So it's not a slog for the players and for the person running the game, which is a bit of a different conversation. But like, yeah, you just rapid action, right? When the combat should be lots of action because it's all happening so quickly, even though it takes so long to play out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always so funny in those games. Your combat could last 2 hours, but it takes less than a minute in game time. So it's always so strange and to wrap your head around. But yeah, power of editing and ambient background music really goes a long way for setting tones and moods throughout the play. We had the benefit of using tabletopaudio.com. Tons of amazing tracks. And if you support them on Patreon, you get variants of those tracks. Such great work over at Tabletop Audio. Definitely, I would, if you're looking for music to enhance your game, for sure, check out tabletopaudio.com.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree as well. Like I use them in my own games too. Yeah, no, totally. Totally and utterly. Now, what about your session prep? Do you kind of approach, because it's obviously going out live to the public, do you approach it in the same way you may approach your home game, or do you have like a different approach to your prep?
I don't think I change the way I prep specifically, but personally, I feel the pressure, especially now. Like we're nearing the end of our first campaign for the show, and there will be future campaigns. So it's not the show, but like this is a long running campaign, and my longest running campaign I've ever been in or run.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of pressure there, and the prep when we're entering the end game here, right? Like it's a lot of pressure, and so my prep is relatively pretty easy though. It's like relatively light because I've only ever run homebrew games, so so I don't really have the experience of tackling like a published module or published shorter campaign. But for me, when it comes to homebrew stuff, a lot of the work is already done up front building the world, and I already know the players, right? When you go and you start your campaign, I knew who all the players were. I knew how those players were interacting with each other. And sorry, by players, I don't actually mean the players at the table, but I mean like the big bads in the game. So my villains or the more important NPCs in the world, I know how they're interacting with each other. And now when the players and the characters enter the world, that's when things get to change. And that's where the collaborative part comes in. Like they get to influence how those other NPCs are interacting with each other and the conflicts, and they can intervene or maybe embellish some of these conflicts and make them worse or help them, etc. Right? So a lot of that prep that's like the front load work. Yeah. And now because we've been in the world for so long, I just know right away. Like it's not even improv at this point, right? It's just like, okay, that makes so much sense that your decision here is affecting this in the world because it really only makes sense because we've been in it so long and I just know it like the back of my hand. So my prep is fairly minimal because I already have a lot of it. Like I know where it's all going, right? And obviously that changes rapidly throughout play, but prep time gets really easy in homebrew. I don't know. I feel like it's like it gets lighter and lighter as you go on.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like, it sounds like you went from like a top-down approach, like the big picture, and then going to eventually looking at the players themselves and looking at the player characters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of always just how I've done it. Do you typically run games, or are you forever DM as well? Or
I am forever DM. Okay. I'm lucky that I'm in a very long-term relationship with another forever DM. Oh, so we have rescued each other. He plays in my game, I play in his, which is brilliant.
That's great.
But yeah, when it comes for me, like I haven't homebrewed my own world yet. I haven't taken on that task. I've been using pre-constructed worlds. So I messed around first with Wizard of the Coast and the Sword Coast, and now I've moved over to Midgard, which is published by Now I've moved over to Midgard, which is I can talk. Now I've moved over to Midgard, which is published by Kobold Press. See, I can do this, and I absolutely adore that setting. I absolutely love it, and but I do want to do what you did and make that jump one day. So I've literally just the next questions that I have about world building are just you doing the homework for me. But before we move on to like the rest of the world building, why did you take that approach that you did?
Like the top down approach? That's a good question. I think it's just easier for me to manage that way. So because I like the big picture. So I've had the big picture, right? Mm-hmm. And it's almost like it's out of focus. And as the campaign progresses, that picture gets sharper and the images become more clear for the players. And again, some of those images are missing in that kind of fuzzy, blown out picture because many of those images, the players are filling in themselves. Again, back to their actions that they do or like their backstories that they provide me at character creation, et cetera. And obviously, as a campaign goes out, character death is I don't want to say an inevitability, especially in 5th edition, because it's very hard to kill your players in 5th edition.
Yep.
Hi,
Russ, how are you?
But it happens, right? And that changes. Like we've had a couple character deaths in our campaign, and yeah, they inject. As sad as it is to see some characters go, those new characters come in and they inject a whole new amount of collaboration that now myself and that player gets to do, and by extension, the entire party gets to take part in, because they are a party. Our party specifically, and I think that's common at probably a lot of tables, they're very dysfunctional. They're mostly distrusting of each other. They're we have, Falzarin is our wizard who Bill plays. He started out very naive, and he's getting a little more street smart, but he's still kind of a naive. John, who plays Shaft is like the typical like schemer, cards close to the chest, gonna do what's best for him and will cooperate when it's best for him, kind of thing. So we have a great inter-party conflict and relationships that are complicated, and a lot of those complications have directly been influenced by some of the NPC interactions. So it's great. I mean, I just really like to fill in that picture. TLDR of your question, I like to fill in the big picture, because I think it's easier to do so, and because of how chaotic some parties can be, and the decisions, the branching consequences of those decisions can be. It makes your prep easier, because you're not throwing out, a magnum opus of pages of prep because the characters went left instead of right, kind of.
Yeah, no, totally. Because like that's the mistake I made way back when I first started DMing. I was like, oh yeah, I've got to do all of this prep, and then it sort of ends up being a case of, like you said, the characters go right instead of left, and you're like, what? Oh. But yeah, no, I sort of ended up doing a similar thing. Like I would take the factions, sort of work out what they're doing, and then insert the players in, see what the players do, and see how that affects everything. Now, of course, talking of world building, I believe your world is Aspara. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, Aspara.
Yay, my dyslexia's not playing up today. Now, obviously, we can go on the website and we can read so much lore and so much information about it, and I absolutely love that. It's the most wonderful resource. But for those who haven't yet gone into the show notes and actually clicked the link, can you tell us all about Aspara?
Aspara is a very small world, so that's the other thing when I homebrew is my like continent scale is more like a kingdom scale. So it's quite like the world is very small. It's not going to take you like weeks of traversal from going one end to the other. And I'm trying to get away from that, because I think sometimes it feels a little claustrophobic, but it's a very small world. And essentially in Aspara, there really aren't any villains. There's certainly heroic people, some members of our party included, but I try to make, the BBG, the big bad evil guys, not necessarily so evil on paper, at least, or at face value. And when you dive deeper, all of their motivations, some of them are self-serving, some of them are less self-serving, and could potentially be, agreed with, or the party could work with them because of X, but Y and Z are pretty bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So where did Aspara sort of come from? And by this, I mean the real world. Did it come from like a random idea one day? Was it like a collection of other stuff? Was it something you've always been thinking about? How did it get going?
I think when I sit down to start and create a world, what I really love to do is take flip through like the monster manual.
Yeah.
And take inspiration from interesting looking creatures, and they offer their own lore in the monster manual, and I'll basically take that and kind of iterate it and potentially build a campaign around a specific creature or creatures, and kind of just blossom from there. Specifically in Aspara, a large threat is this creature called the Nyogi, and they're essentially this spacefaring creature that takes over and has like mind control abilities. So they have all these thralls, and they're pretty much the only distinctly evil force in Aspara, really. So I thought they were very interesting, and I thought you could easily build a campaign around them. And that's kind of what has happened. And this threat to the world, others are trying to battle it, or they're unaware of it, or they just don't care about it to pursue their own self-interests. So that's kind of where things usually start for me. And when it comes to like plotting down like the cities or figuring out what's going on, it's because my worlds are so small, it also makes that much more easier, because I can put more focus into specific cities that they may or may not go to. Because I find when you have an expansive territory or a huge map that's like thousands of miles from one end to the other, right? I think there's a lot of things that you just have to gloss over because of the scale.
Yeah.
And specifically for our live play, our actual play, I want to make sure that there's the detail there, and I want it to feel like it's fleshed out for the listener, because listening to somebody play a TTRPG is a lot different than actually playing a TTRPG. And part of crafting the show and keeping it interesting is making sure that there are things that can get picked up on by the listener, and they can connect some dots that maybe the players aren't connecting. And we always try to give our listener more information than anybody at the table has.
Yeah.
Which I hope that they enjoy, and I certainly enjoy, because obviously I have all of the information. So I like it.
Like, just picking up on a couple of things there as well, like, totally agree with you on that kind of scale thing, because I love playing with massive maps that take forever. I don't know if you can see, like, I attempted a sort of homebrew world kind of there. I sort of have it on the thingamajig, and that map, just on one A4 page, is like sort of about 400 miles long. So like I was going on a tiny little bit of details, but you do, like you said, you end up glossing over, don't you? You end up kind of with just those, like, you want to fill in the little bits, but at the same time, if you filled in every single little bit, then you wouldn't have a D&D game, you would have the novel War and Peace.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly. Well, yeah, that's like the catch-22 of it, right? I mean, it's so easy to fall into that trap of over preparing, because you could spend 6 months building your world and the players wouldn't even see 25% of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, depending what they decide to do. And then obviously you can employ tactics that aren't, I wouldn't consider railroading, but you can push them in certain directions and give them hints and hooks to try to steer them in different directions. But unless you're literally going to put them on a train and send them to the other side of the world, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to be fun for the players generally.
I think something also I'm finding really interesting as well is that bit you mentioned where you give the listener more information than the players have got. And does that come from a certain place, or is that just something you just vibe with and you just like doing?
Well, we often, I mean, I don't say often. We just put out we just put out our 172nd episode is releasing soon at the time of recording. And we have a few like post-credit scenes. I mean, we just completely pulled an MCU and put in post-credit scenes. And again, most of those scenes, the players are not allowed to listen to, because they are they are scenes that don't, they apply to the players, but they don't involve the players. because it's strictly for the listener. It gives them a brief insight into the other goings on in the world. And what I like about that is that for me when I'm a player, like I don't need that as the player, but as the person running the game, you're like, boy, I wish I could share this with somebody because I think this is really cool. And I like this is the world. This is the world we're building, and I want to share more of that with our loyal listeners, essentially. And the other side of that is we often have like an off mic moment where it's akin to pulling a player out of the room. If you're sitting at the table, right, when you're playing, and the DM says, okay, you come with me, you come with me, we're going out here and we're going to have our private conversation as you're off by yourself or whatever's happening. So we, if I need a word with Falzer, and I'll kick everybody else off, they'll pull the headphones off, we'll continue to record. And then again, the players are not allowed to listen to that in the final cut because that's not for them. That's what's going on with Falzer.
That's so fun though, isn't it? It's just having those kind of like, I know something, you know something, no one else knows the something. There's something tantalizing about it, isn't there?
Well, I think it also is a really good vehicle for player agency because oftentimes, like you say, like they're getting that secret information and now they have the choice to act on it, to share with the party, to take input or not take the input from the rest of the party on what they just experienced. Or in the case of Shaft in our game, he will often hold on to that bits of information because that's his leverage. He'll keep it for as long as he can, and as long as it is going to be beneficial to him, and it puts him on the higher foot, right?
Yeah. Fair dues. I've had that as well. Just in my game recently, I had one party member contact an NPC and sort of got hold of a little bit of information. Hi, Alex. How are you doing? Hope you're dealing with this information and this little bit really well. And yeah, I kind of had that where I had him contact this certain NPC, kind of basically the leader of the lizard folk sort of military force, because in my worlds, the lizard folks are a lot more than just a random enemy over here. They've actually got their own civilization, their own culture. I kind of have them as a little bit sort of kind of dictatorship-ish, a little bit with 3 different governments, and I'm just completely going here. 3 different bits, like one for education, one for military, and one for domestic matters. And they decided to scry in to the head of the military arm, who just so happens to be a really high-level cleric who knew exactly what was going on and switched it round and turned it into a Skype call.
That's awesome.
And that was a lot of fun.
That's good.
But the only person who could hear the conversation was Alex's character, Vittoria.
Right.
And yeah, so that was just fun. But I did that with everyone else hearing, which was kind of hilarious because I got I got to hear the reactions of all the other players realizing he's about to be played.
That's great.
Which was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go back to yourself now. And when you sit down to write, what does your writing sessions and what do your prep sessions kind of look like? If I was in the room, what would I be kind of seeing?
You would see probably a lot of extra windows open with creature stats and old lore of which I like to pull from and tweak. And I would definitely have music playing. Doesn't really matter what it is, but just something to kind of keep me moving, keep my leg going, keep my leg bouncing, that kind of thing. But I mean, honestly, it's relatively simple. The one key thing I think for my own prep that really lets me get into the head of my NPCs, because once we hit kind of into chapter 2 of our show, and we're currently in the 3rd and final chapter of this campaign, we moved away from the teaching aspect because we had been playing for about a year and a half at that point, I believe, and we were, our newer players were pretty well versed in it. So we really leaned into focusing on the role playing.
Yeah.
And all of the players they're great role players. And I want my NPCs to keep up with them. I need them to. So to get into those mind spaces, I really love to write out dialogue for my NPCs. If I know an encounter with an NPC is coming up, obviously you kind of know an NPC is an exposition device, right? Like that's kind of what they exist for. So I know what the NPC wants to tell them, but I do try to think of responses I'll get from the party, especially if the meeting is a little more antagonistic, which honestly, with the Incorrigible Party, most NPC meetings are antagonistic. So, and really very often turn more combative than just kind of exchanging of harsh words. So I just like to write dialogue for them, and I write what I think they would say. And I mean, I do some voices. Like most of our NPCs have some voices. I am currently out of voices though. So introducing more NPCs, I'm out of voices. I'm sorry. I'm sorry everybody, but that's it. There's no I have nothing in the can. So you're going to hear just me talking, and it's going to sound, every NPC moving forward is just going to be me. But I want to know their voice, and I want to know their thinking, because I think that's more of that attention to detail and more of that filling in the word. Because a simple, 10 to 15 minute conversation with an NPC really can fill in a specific area or a specific instance or the world in general. Like you can offer a lot in just a simple dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, and no, I totally, like, on the voices front as well, I have run out of voices. I have one of three. I have Eastern European, Indian that turns into Welsh, or really bad Texan. That's what you get from me. Now, of course, NPCs always have a goal, don't they? And that's something that I found that's really, really been helpful for me. When it comes to sort of planning the NPCs. But when it comes to your writing and your prep work, do you have a goal in mind?
Wow. I've never really thought of my goal. I guess like I say, my goal is usually the exposition dump. And I try to, but what I tried to do, and actually very recently I've kind of failed at doing so. I try to get the players to prompt for the exposition dump. I just don't want to give it to them. I don't want to say give it to them freely, and it's not really a matter of making them work for it, but I just want it to seem like it's naturally come up and like they're probing for this information rather than me just handing it to them, because the current trajectory of where we are in the campaign, like they know exactly where they need to go and what they want to do. For the most part, but it's kind of the first time that we have a very distinct road to the end, and I just have to continue to throw complications into that, because otherwise they kind of just march to the end of the campaign and then it's over, So my goal is usually to just complicate things, no matter where we are in the campaign. Like that, it's as simple as that, right?
Yeah, no, that's the best part as well. Just being like, I do the same for backstories. Like, you give me a backstory and I will find something in there and just find it and just squeeze on that thing.
Yeah.
And then I know my players really, really well now, and I know exactly what will, for want of a better phrase, get the players moving. Talking of goals, I've got a goal in mind for this podcast. Currently, we are on the Good Pod's Top 100 Indie Documentary chart, and we're currently chilling at number 33, which is a really awesome place to be. And you've helped us get there, so thank you so much for that. But I wonder, can we break 30 in the next week or so? That would be absolutely awesome. If you could jump over to Good Pods, leave a rating and a review, and that will really, really help this show grow. Second favour to ask from you as well. Some of the more observant of you might notice that the format's changing slightly. And this is a good thing because I'm also doing a video version of this, and you can find this on our YouTube channel. Quite simply search for Tom Meets Interesting People, same name as the podcast. I'll leave a link in the notes below, and I'd love to see you there. You can actually see what I look like, and we'll be honest, probably wish I stayed audio. So let's move on now to the other project that you've got, the T-Hud Podcast. I believe you kicked that off in 2017. Is that right?
Yeah. Boy. Yep. That sounds right. I think so. It's been a long. It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
So tell us, how did it kind of get started?
So the T-Hud Podcast has been running longer than the Incorrigible Party, and it was I had recently got into like tabletop board games, like hobby board games, in the vein of Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, and those things, and kind of expounding and diving into that hobby. And again, that's where I met the members of the Incorrigible Party. So it's all very closely connected to me, especially. And essentially, at the time, I was listening to a ton of board game podcasts, and I thought, I really love this hobby. I'm buying crazy like people typically do when you first get into a hobby, just collecting everything I can, regardless of quality. Yeah. And I'm like, let's contribute to this. So my current co-host, Moby, and my best friend, Marty, the three of us started, each of us kind of taking on a specialty. And because Moby is a cinema buff, Marty loves his video games, and I was into the board games at the time. So those are the three aspects of our show that we like to focus on. And, we each kind of have our own segment. And really what the show is about, and what I really like about it, is that all three of those things are pretty closely connected. They have a ton of overlap, one in like fans and people that enjoy those three things. You might not enjoy all three. You may only be really into two, but there's a lot of commonalities between the three, and just how you enjoy those three aspects, or how they're created, how they're interpreted by consumers, just a lot of different things. Since then, Marty is no longer a full-time co-host. He went back to school, and so he left, unfortunately. So it's just Moby and I, with occasional appearances by Marty. But since Marty's departure, we've also tried to have a guest co-host on for as many episodes as we can.
Yeah, fair dues. So I wanted to ask you about putting your episodes together. I got a whole bunch of questions here. First one is, how do you decide what to talk about?
So for the podcast, I do all the editing on both of the shows, and Moby is the content manager. So he actually puts together the full outline of the episodes. So it's really, that's kind of his contribution to it. And, obviously it's collaborative, and both of us have, equal input into it, but he's the one that he likes to spearhead that. Also, he's the one that will chase after guests and form those guest connections, which is, honestly, I'm so thankful, because I'm sure it takes a lot of effort and time to arrange that stuff and form those relationships. And he's very sociable. He's, if I'm the introvert, he's the extrovert. So he loves that stuff. He absolutely loves it.
And do you sort of how do you decide what to talk about? Obviously you mentioned Moby's doing most of the content there. Is it just a sort of case of you just exchange a few messages? Do you have more of a formal process? How do you pick those topics?
Well, we do keep a shared Google Doc. We call it the Imaginarium, where, when either of us has a thought, we'll put it into a list of potential topics, and then kind of that's where we keep and pull from for the episode structures. So each episode, we used to have all three segments: crazy about cardboard for board games, movie musings for film, and video game variety show for the video games. But now our episodes, especially when we have guest co-hosts, we just pick two of those three topics, two of those three segments, and kind of focus on them.
Yeah.
Usually they're connected, and usually it's also about like what's going on currently within those industries as well. Our episode that launches at the end of November, we're talking about kind of the financial struggles that Disney is currently going through, and they recently brought Bob Iger back as CEO. So like that was a very easy topic to talk about for movie musings and that kind of stuff. So a lot of it, we try to keep it topical, but we are a monthly show now. So
yeah,
being topical is often difficult because by the time we've recorded and release, 24/7 news cycle, something else has already happened kind of thing.
Oh God, yeah, I have that for this one. It's sort of like, I think 2 episodes I recorded ago, we referenced something that has happened at the end of October, which is only a few weeks for us.
Right.
But that episode's going to go out in January. We're like...
Yeah, that's difficult. It's difficult. Well, I mean, I just think like the general pop culture, and that was kind of, again, the idea behind the podcast, because, podcast, pop culture, that kind of, again, very clever play on words. It's like, it just always, it influences us. It influences us so much, and it really is a driving force behind a lot of people's interactions. I mean, it's just your typical like gathering the water cooler, talking about what you watched, the day before kind of thing, which is obviously very different now with streaming services and how you can binge things, and doesn't quite happen in that episodic format or discussion, that you might have gotten in days past, but it still happens. It still occurs, and it's still how people connect with each other. Mm-hmm. And that's also what I really enjoyed about the board gaming hobby is you can easily sit down at a table with strangers and engage in a rule set. And I think this applies with TTRPGs as well. I know we talked about your dissertation you had mentioned was kind of focusing on that.
Yeah.
And like you can, it's bridging the gap in a lot of areas, right? Of social interactions specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that almost kind of shared experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because it's more than just that shared experience is shown in more than just TTRPGs. It's shown in podcasting groups and different podcasters that I've met. I've seen it show up between academics. I've seen it. I've read literature about it showing up between people in the military, people who work in the same places. Generally, it's just really kind of interesting. But back to yourself. When it comes to producing an entire episode from prep to recording and then post, how long does it take the two of you to do that?
Well, our episodes range from an hour to 2 hours, depending on the topics. And we also have a banter section at the very beginning where we kind of bring whatever topic, one or two that either of us want to talk about. And usually that's kind of where the more current event stuff occurs. But I would say, 2 hour recording and then the editing process is a lot quicker with only 2 voices, especially compared to the Incorrigible Party. But like typical editing takes at least twice as long as the recorded audio. So it's time consuming. And I'm just fortunate that I really enjoyed that process. And, I'm trying to venture out into turning that into more of a career as well. And I just really enjoy it. And it helps that when you really care about the projects, right? Like if I care about both these projects a lot. So it's very easy for me to be enthusiastic about sitting in a chair for 4 hours, editing, adding music and, intros and outros and balancing levels, etc. So I don't know. It's just something I really enjoy. And it's like part of this podcasting process that I didn't know I was going to enjoy the most.
Yeah. It sounds like almost like you're very self-motivated then to just get it sort of going.
I mean, when you have co-hosts, obviously there's expectations on both sides. But yeah, when it comes to generally, I just really love being behind a microphone. And it's strange how the microphone It almost like it's like this. It has like transformative qualities or
Yes.
something, because like you get behind it and you just want to talk into it.
Yeah.
Like I don't talk this much to people in real life. No way. Absolutely no way.
Oh no, totally. I get it. It's like sort of, I don't know. I just look at it and it's like,
It's so
dare I
inviting.
admit-
It's like, oh, hello there, sir.
it's like, I don't know if you're familiar with Critical Role, and when Grog had a Festance of Divergence, and that was speaking to him, I can't remember the name of the weapon. It's the same kind of thing. The mic is calling me.
It talks back. It's talking back to me.
I'm not actually recording a podcast right now. I'm just talking to a microphone.
Right. I have to carry a microphone. If I want to hold any type of social interaction in person, I need a microphone in my hand. It's not connected to anything, but I have to have it now. I'm trained. I've been doing this for so long. I'm now trained.
I'm so glad I didn't catch that on camera, because to add to the joke, I was going to bring out a second mic. and I've just ended up, let me move this real quick. I've just ended up knocking all my dice over.
Oh, wow. That's a nice little cup you have for those. Mine are just loose on the desk. I can bat them at any moment's notice.
Oh, this is going to ruin the editing. But literally, I brought it from IKEA for 30p.
Handy.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. All right, I'm probably going to need to cut that bit out, because that's probably going to sound absolutely horrid on the microphone, or it's going to be like my first foray into ASMR. So, before we do our questionnaire that rounds us off, where can I find the Incorrigible Party? Where can I find T-Hud? And where can I find you online?
Well, both shows are available on any of your podcast players of your choice. Incorrigibleparty.com for obviously the Incorrigible Party, ttpodcast.com for the T-Hud Podcast. I'm on Twitter. I mean, both shows are on Instagram and Facebook as well. You can just search those names. My Twitter handle is Leland_Steel. Happy to have any conversations about TTRPGs, movies, video games, anything you want, board games. Hit me up if you so choose. Pretty easy to find.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, so to close us out, we do the questionnaire. And these come from the Prost questionnaire that were later adapted by Bernard Pivot, and then later by my hero, James Lipton. And now I present my doppelganger adaptation to yourself. What is your favorite word?
I mean, is it bad to say incorrigible?
No, it's not bad to say it. It's perfectly reasonable. Why is that your favorite word?
I find it's difficult to spell, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
Annoying to spell, but it kind of defines itself in that way. You know what I mean? And obviously the connections formed with the Incorrigible Party and the players, John, Emily, Bill, and Elena, like they're my best friends, right? They're some of my best friends now.
Yeah.
And that was all because of the show, and it's all attributed to being incorrigible. And so I couldn't say anything else.
Yeah, fair dues. What is your least favorite word?
Oh, least favorite is probably work.
Yeah, I hate work. Hi, my employer. What engages you?
I think interaction and systems engage me. I like to explore them and explore these, like these specific topics, interacting with people, even though I don't talk to people in real life. But like part of that getting behind the microphone is also tied to you're behind it talking about the things you love. So interacting amidst those topics really does drive me and get me going.
What disengages you?
Oof, disengages me, man. I mean, I think, it's pretty typical, the toxicity, which is just, everywhere these days, like that double-edged sort of social media can oftentimes be very disengaging. I think oftentimes the feedback loop that a social media will give you can really just wreck your day. You know, it's very easy to internalize the lack of what drives you, and to kind of put it on yourself, that's typical imposter syndrome stuff, right? That like everybody goes through. So you have to, man, I think myself, I can do it to myself is what I'm saying. Like I can, I can disengage myself too easily.
Yeah, fair dues. I can totally relate to that as well. Like one mean tweet can just ruin not just your day, but your week, because it keeps ruminating in your head, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and
it's like an echo chamber, right? Like,
yeah, not fun. What sound or noise do you love?
I love the crackle of like snow, the crunch of footsteps in snow.
Yeah.
Like I could ASMR that right now.
Yeah. I mean, my geography's rubbish. Vancouver, Canada, that's lots of snow, not much snow.
I mean, we have a ton of mountains to go that get a lot of snow, but like in the lower mainland, which I live in, the city, the suburbs, not so much. So I think that's also maybe why, because like it's fairly rare. If I want it, I have to like physically go seek it out most of the time. So it's almost like it makes it like something special. I mean, I love snow and I love winter, but I hate driving in it is the worst thing.
Yeah, no, totally. I must admit, I'm a summer boy. Like, I like Christmas. I like the Christmas period, but I don't like sort of the cold. Like, it is getting cold here now in England.
Yeah.
And we are holding still on the, we're not putting the heating on yet.
Oh,
you can see my breath already. What sound or noise do you hate?
I hate the sound of crying babies.
Yep.
Really can't stand it. I don't particularly enjoy children. I mean, I can tolerate them. I think once they get to a certain age and like you can engage with them in activities, like kids are great, but anything like younger than like 4, I can't handle it.
Yep. God, crying babies is stat. Let's not talk about that. Question 7, everyone's favorite question. What is your favorite curse word?
Oh, it's gotta be the F word. I think I use it a little too much. It's funny though, because Bill and Elena from the Incorrigible Party, they both say frig a lot in lieu of, and like spending so much time with them, I've started to say that now so much instead of dropping an F-bomb.
Oh, it's a wonderfully versatile curse word, though. You can put it before any noun and just get a new insult. Or any word.
Very true.
And it just fits in anywhere.
But it can also be positive. Like, something can be really effing great, right?
Yeah. Or you can even go, like, they could be sort of like something that kicks off something happening. Like, me starting this podcast, I went, fuck it, I'll just do it.
That's right.
or like the Forever DM once again going, and this is my podcast, I can swear as much as I like. The Forever DM just going, fuck it, fine, I'll go and play.
Yeah, okay, I'll homebrew this campaign. God.
All right, question 8. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, as I previously alluded to, I mean, some type of audio engineering would be great. I mean, currently I'm just, kind of, I manage a warehouse. It's kind of manual labor. And I guess it's one of those things of like turning your hobby into your job can be good and bad. You could potentially grow to hate it. It's all, I mean, obviously it's also a pretty competitive market as well. Difficult to break into, I suppose. So that's kind of what I would love, obviously. I mean, that's like every podcaster seems to like, I would love to do the podcasting forever, and just do it and be able to put all my energy into it. That would just be amazing.
Yeah. The opposite question, what profession would you not like to do?
Ooh, I would not want to be any type of healthcare worker. I don't. I have compassion on occasion.
Yeah.
I can be empathetic. As I get older, I'm a lot less empathetic as I used to be, and I think a position like that, or any kind of more public-facing position, like even I don't think I could handle working retail.
Yeah.
40 hours a week. I'm not. I don't think I'm that type of person. A lot of people excel at that type of position and that interaction. And I classify it as a mundane interaction.
Yeah.
Like that's where I draw the line, you know, like this interaction, you and I, perfect. It's fucking great, this interaction, right? Mundane interaction outside of your hobbies and your interests, that's the stuff that I shy away from. And so I don't like. Small talk, I don't want to make small talk with you. If you want to come in and buy something, here it is. I'm going to go to the back now. That's the type of person I am.
And it takes a specific kind of person to do each of those jobs. And there are people who excel at those jobs, and I wish all of them the best of luck. But as somebody who has done both care and retail, I'm not going back.
And we need you people. You type of people, we need you. Like we need you, and we appreciate that you are capable and effective at your positions. But so thank you for being there.
You're welcome. But yes, pay us more. We cannot survive on minimum wage. Oh my God. I could literally have a whole rant and just bring a whole load of healthcare workers on, and we could just make 2 hours. We could just fuel the country with our anger. Yeah. But let's not go there. The final question of the questionnaire. If you could say only one statement to any one person, what would that statement be, and who would that person be?
Any statement, so like I could define myself, define anything.
Yep, any person, alive or dead. I'll put it in the messages as well. Any one person, what that statement would be, and who would that person be?
Well, I think if I was limited to one statement, it would just have to be, boy, this is it sounds cliche, but I have one thing to say ever to one single person. It's going to be to my girlfriend Emma that I love you.
Aw, that's so cute. How long you two been together?
Oh, wow. We've been together just over 2 years. We also actually met over Twitter, and she actually lives in the Netherlands. We formed a relationship during the pandemic, so it wasn't until over a year of us being together that we could actually meet in person because of travel restrictions.
Yeah.
And things are going great. We're working things out and trying to figure out where we get together and where we're going to be in one place permanently, but
yay! As soon as you hit the 2 year mark, it goes downhill from there. Just save our experience. I'm kidding. Oh God, you two sound utterly wonderful. Now, to round us out, can you remind us where we can find you online?
Yeah, please. My personal handle, Leland_Steel on Twitter, incorrigibleparty.com, ttpopcast.com for both of my shows. Information about both of them, show notes for our podcast, NPC information, world lore for the Incorrigible Party, a number of city maps. Actually, what's great is John, who plays Shaft on the Incorrigible Party, he is a wonderful map maker, and he has made almost all the maps for all of our cities for us. So it just is, it's like me relaying him, and it's more, again, of type of that collaboration amongst all of us, the hosts of the show. I'll give him details and he'll bring that to life in the map, because I'm not so good as far as the map making it pretty. So he does a fantastic job of that. He really enjoys it. So plenty of city maps on there. So you get the feel as you're listening. I hope you get more. We just wanted to enhance the listening experience.
Yeah. And can we find John online as well?
Yeah, he is at Good Enough Party on Twitter, and Emily, man, what are all their handles? Yeah, we're all on Twitter. If you just search #Incorrigible Party, you'll find all of us.